We are officially in possession territory. This was our weekly film of the week. This is a classic 1980s horror film directed by, and this is going to be fun, Andrzej Zulawski is what I'm going to say. Andre seems like the safest bet here. What is that, Polish? Yes, Polish film director. Apparently makes dramas most of the time. Is not usually making horror movies, but this is his big hit, his most iconic film. A little bit of history with this one. It's taken me a while to get around to this, and I'd assume many people, because it has an interesting history with releases. When it was first released in the US back in 1981, funny enough, it was cut down to 81 minutes. For reference, the film is just over like 2 hours, I believe. So a lot of film was cut. Apparently like a third of it. All his dramas are scary too. Okay, good to know. Good to know. It was basically like cut down and turned into more of a creature flick, more of a monster movie, which if you didn't know there's a creature in this, I actually had no idea there was. I knew very little about this. And then in the opening credits, they were like special effects on the creature done by, and I was like, oh fuck, I can't wait to meet him. Yeah, so it was turned into a creature movie. They cut a lot of the like psychological elements, a lot of the, honestly, like what make the movie what it is, all the divorce, the fighting, all of the really kind of ugly and unenjoyable stuff. And that was what it was for a long time. It was a very hard movie to find for a while. I know this because a few years ago, it only recently got a 4K restoration and a proper release, the full cut, like a few years ago in 2021 by Metrograph. Now it's, you can stream it, and it got a full re-release and all this stuff. But before that, it's like, if you tried to watch Possession, it's like you had to pirate it or like find it illegally, which I don't do. Yeah, it's just been through some shit. And it's kind of always, movies like that, horror movies always intrigue me, because it's like, damn, like how bad is it? Like what are we gonna see? But here, having seen it, I can see why it's a bit of a disturbing watch, a bit of a tough watch, a bit of a controversial one. Have many of you seen this before? And like, what are the thoughts on this? Because I was honestly kind of surprised at how weird it was. Love it, mid, first time for me, and I was pretty disarmed. For sure. I've seen Possession twice. It's my least favorite Broadkarst film so far. Interesting. I also want to note, and I don't mean to do this intentionally, this is the third Broadkarst film to get like 4.5 stars. And I'm not just a guy who enjoys everything. Just had to point that out. I didn't mean for that to happen. I first saw this in a theater with my friend, stoned out of my mind, and we were repressing laughter so hard I think a black hole formed in each of our stomachs. I think watching, this is on the list of worst movies to watch high. This would be a really bad time high, because like I already felt kind of high watching it. The atmosphere of it is really horrible and not fun to sit in. So to watch it high, I'd be having a bad time. I'm also really sensitive. In the few times I've gotten high in my life, I'm very sensitive to sound when I'm high. Like I don't know how loud something is. Like I start to overthink the volume on everything. Seeing as though this is a film with a lot of screaming and really loud screaming that goes on for a while, I think I would have a panic attack if I watched this high. There are too many iconic scenes to ignore. This is true. I thought it was a very rickety film, and I had pacing and suspense issues, plus just not my type of movie. That's very fair. I will get into the ricketiness of it, because I think that's also something that was kind of in the way for me. It is a challenging film indeed. Longest 2 hours ever. Thought it was great. A thing that seems easy to overlook is the sound design. It was absolutely incredible and super haunting. 9 out of 10. Yes, the technical elements here, sound design included, one of my highlights for sure. Like even if you really don't vibe with it, it's one of the best looking movies of the 80s that I've seen. I mean, for movies of this kind that feel like, I don't know, like late night horror movies, it looks way better than it has any reason to be. Not that like most Italian giallos look bad. A lot of them look amazing. They have like the best colors in any movie. But this has like the vibe of that for some reason. But like also feels like a Kubrick movie every now and then with its framing. It feels like they're fucking putting the camera on like a tripod that's like double the height of the actors and just like rotating it like this as the actor like walks around. I'm sure that's not how they did it, but that's like how it looks. And there's all this shit with mirrors in the beginning that I was like, how are they doing this? It's a really impressive and unique looking movie that is worth a watch for that alone. And I'm really surprised that like the Kubrick comparisons don't come up more often, just because It had a really distinct look. As ugly as it was, looked fantastic. Very cold, very gross, sterile movie. I mean, I've never been to Berlin. It really captured like the sterileness of that area, you know? Like it's a really bleak looking movie. It's details like that just push it over the edge, you know, that make it just that much more unenjoyable, I guess. I want to touch on, I feel like a lot of people, in light of what I watched this month last week, I described Eddington as unenjoyable and then gave it 4.5, 4 out of 5. And people were like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you call it unenjoyable and then you give it like a 4 out of 5. 2025 Karsten, everyone. And I'm like, sometimes an unenjoyable movie is good for that reason. Like, why do you want everything to be a good time? Like, some movies shouldn't be a good time. Some movies should challenge you and feel like shit, and it should be a bad experience watching it. That's what's impressive about it. Did you want Eddington to be a good time, is what I'm asking? And Possession is like, even like that times 10. It's like, fuck, I don't want to be watching this movie after like 30 minutes. I was surprised at how much I didn't feel the runtime. I think because it just keeps getting crazier, I didn't really care how long it was going on for, despite like, I feel like when it comes to movies like this where they have non-traditional structures and there's not like a clear-cut plot to follow necessarily, it's very difficult to latch onto. Through that, the runtime ends up feeling way longer than it needs to be. But this is an exception. This one I was like really kind of just entranced by what it was doing and was like, just keep serving me whatever comes next. Like, I don't care. It'll be fine. So yeah, I've gone off the rails on this one. The film is very inspired by the director's own divorce. In fact, one of the scenes with the kid with all the jam. The kid's name is Bob, by the way. is loosely based on his own divorce and finding his kid like covered in jam after his ex-wife like left the kid alone. Something like that. Bob, underrated name. I was like, is it insensitive to call this a Twin Peaks prequel and this is the Bob backstory? It's not, that joke doesn't even make sense and it's not even a good joke. Anyway, it was a very personal film for him, clearly, and you like really feel that in the filmmaking. He was having, I'm pretty sure everyone involved, the top 3 people involved in this film were either mentally unstable before or after the movie, which says a lot about the film because I think he had a lot of like suicidal thoughts before making this. He fell into like a deep depression. Isabelle Adjani, amazing performance. We'll talk more about it in a second. She had like PTSD after it, basically. Like she was really unwell. I guess like I don't know if this is confirmed, but she went like full method while filming it. If you've seen the film, you understand that like it's a very intense performance. It's a very demanding role. And so it would make sense that she would really struggle to come out of it. She had suicidal thoughts after making the film. Sam Neill is in this, which I was actually not aware of. He has a fantastic filmography, by the way, because it's not only this, but it's obviously Jurassic Park, and then In the Mouth of Madness, which is a really underrated Sam Neill performance. But he's in this, and he's also fantastic. You hate him in this movie. He's like a really kind of violent and unstable character. He said it's one of the hardest movies he's ever been in. Not hard to see why. He said he really struggled with it. It's one of those movies, kind of like The Exorcist, where it feels like it exists beyond just the movie. Like there's or like Stalker. There's an aura surrounding it that is just as like haunting as the movie itself. Like the actual process of making it feels as tormented as the actual characters in the movie. So yeah, just a really fascinating backstory. And then for all of that to happen, and then for it to get to the release and they cut like a third of it is just crazy to me. It did premiere at Cannes, by the way. To get to the meat of this and how I felt, I had a very difficult time watching this. It felt like a lot of different movies to me. I would imagine this inspired Gaspar Noé quite a bit. Like there were a lot of framing choices that reminded me of Gaspar Noé, who is also inspired by Kubrick, and this feels like it was loosely inspired by Stanley Kubrick, to be honest. I saw a lot of Repulsion, Roman Polanski's Repulsion in this, which funny enough, I read later on like a bad review for it, compared it to a lesser version of Repulsion in the New York Times at the time of release, with just like how heady and psychological it was. And I really saw a lot of like Isabelle's and Johnny's performance through Catherine Deneuve in Repulsion. Like, they feel like very similar, disturbed performances. And then like I said, very Rosemary's Baby as well, yes. I also saw a little bit of Suspiria and like other Italian giallos. I don't know if it was just the like synthy score that comes in and out, or if it's like some of the kills and like the more horror-y elements of it. It was a real weird blend of different styles and subgenres, and it's like it is the poster child for psychological horror because of that. Like it incorporates so many different elements from so many different corners of psychological horror that it becomes probably one of, at least to a lot of people, the greatest psychological horror movie ever made. That said, I'll get my issues out of the way now. There's very few of them. I think part of what made it so difficult was, I liked how the person said it earlier. It did feel very rickety, a little chopped together. Like, I didn't think it flowed as well as I would have liked it to. Like, it feels like a kind of stumbly descent into madness compared to how I like my movies that do that, which feel a little bit more on the flowy, heady side of things. I don't know. I just think the edit was a little weird. Like, there's a lot of scenes here where the music's building and the violence is building and there's all this screaming, and then it like abruptly cuts and starts into the next scene, and it feels like you just have a full reset. And personally, I know that's like a nitpicky critique, but like that's like my one complaint here is that like I snap out of it often, especially near the end, which is like just one banger after another. But once one ends and the other begins, it just feels like you're completely snapped out of what you were going through. This movie probably requires a rewatch. This is true as well. I obviously didn't have time to rewatch it before this. I kind of wish I knew that before going into it though, because maybe this would have been crazy, but like maybe I would have seen it like early last week and then rewatched it before hopping on here. That's a lot of possession for 1 week. But like, I don't know when I can hop back into this again, just because it's the kind of movie, like, not to bring up Gaspar Noé again, but it reminds me of like Vortex. It's just so in the head of these characters, and there doesn't seem like there's an end in sight, and it's very suffocating. It's a hard one to jump back into, you know? You're kind of trying to piece together what's happening throughout this, and you don't really get a solid grasp on it until the end. There's all these like doppelgangers. Will admit I was like a little confused as to why that was happening or what was going on there. And then where it ends up in the end really kind of tied things together to me. It felt like a rebirth in a way. The whole film in general kind of feels like a rebirth. It doing that through the lens of like a divorce, like finding a new version of yourself, or like cutting out a side of yourself from a destructive relationship. I mean, it tells it in a really ugly and horrifying way, but I was like, that's really beautiful. I mean, that's a really like a true feeling, I feel. I mean, obviously I haven't been through a divorce or anything, but I was like, I really love that about it. It feels like it's scary to think that there is like another you in a relationship. And the idea that when you're divorced from that, like you're kind of like killing a side of you or giving birth to a new you, I think that's really cool. I didn't really get all the doppelganger stuff at all. I feel like the filmmaker left a lot of loose ends for the viewer to tie up on their own. That's fair, but like I kind of, if it had spelled any of that out for me, I would have been really disappointed by it. I mean, it's like, it's not a film that exists on a normal wavelength. Like I like the open-endedness of it. Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, it does feel like it covers everything it needs. Like, I feel like I walk away with everything I needed. I think without the ending, I would have been a bit lost. I think the ending feels very conclusive and like, there are these two doppelgangers now. And that's the end of the movie. Something I am admittedly very foggy on and cannot touch on is like a lot of the like Cold War stuff and like a lot of the political like unrest at the heart of this. There's a lot going on there. I do think adds an interesting layer to this, and to see that, I've read some things that like it is pairing what's going on in the world and with Germany with the divorce, like almost in like a metaphorical way. I find that like really cool. Not something that I was entirely focused on the first watch though. I was mostly into the divorce. I take the division in a domestic relationship as a mirror for the division of Berlin. Exactly, yes. That was kind of what I was picking up on. I think that just, you cannot call it an empty movie is what I'll say. It feels like a very, for all of its like otherworldly, surreal creature-ness. It feels very rooted in reality in a way that's like super raw, and I would imagine very cathartic. Divorce Summer. Dude, it's so funny that like it was, like I was also pitching Kramer versus Kramer. I had no idea divorce was such a big part of this movie. We were really going divorce or divorce. I loved, I want to talk a bit more about the performances before I wrap up on that. I think the performances here are kind of the standout, at least on a first watch. It's the thing you feel pretty immediately. Like, it doesn't matter like how in-depth you think the film is thematically, or like how well it explores any of this. I'm like, you cannot deny that like what they're doing with performance here is like really special. And I love how like avant-garde it is, like performances that you feel and don't really like make a lot of sense logically speaking. Obviously the iconic subway hallway shot or scene, but I guess shot because it's all one shot, is like the most iconic scene in the movie. And I've obviously like seen it out of context and stuff. In the context of the film and like watching it in full, it's crazy how it doesn't feel random and just like over the top horror screaming, because I think that's like something that is easy to, it's a cheap way of making people think that something more is going on. I'm not going to list any examples because it's not only, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but also it's like, what's the point of that? But like, I feel like a lot of performances get mistaken for being like really good performances because there's a lot of screaming. And you would think on the outside that this is an example of that, but it's not. There's like a real routine to her like breakdown in the subway. Like it logically flows from one place to another. It almost feels like a dance number. Like it's incredibly well done. The sex scene was, yeah. We're talking with the octopus, right? That was insane. It's a very physical movie. Like you really feel a lot of what's going on. It's very visceral and wet and slimy and cold, and I just, oh my god, everything with like the meat is just, oh Jesus. The movie had moments that made me chuckle. The wife's lover tweaking out in the door. Dude, what's his name? Henrik? He made me laugh. I thought he was really funny. Don't make me break down this bloody door. And then he's like, you don't have to, it's open. I don't know why I did a British accent. They're not British. Would you consider it body horror? There's a body horror moment, yes, with a lot of fluids. Like, that's, for the record, that scene, it's like blood and piss, and like, it's just, I was honestly just trying to figure out how they like pulled that off in the moment. Like, I think I was doing that just to like distract myself from how gross it was, but I was like, where's the fluid coming from? like how is it coming out of her hair at one point? Yeah, dude, I don't know. It has like everything you could want out of a movie like this, in my opinion. It has amazing, like, gross body horror stuff. It has amazing creature designs. It's like disturbing and really scary, but not in like a cheap jump scary way, obviously. It's really personal and raw. Like it's like a really great, I mean, I'll say it, like one of my favorite movies about divorce for sure. One of the most unique movies about that. It's beautifully shot. It's kind of everything you would want out of a psychological horror film like this. And it's funny. It's got like a sense of humor. And it's one that this is, I say this less than 24 hours after watching it. It's one that is just not gonna leave my mind anytime soon. Like I'm still trying to figure it out, which is funny because it's like, it's not a film you're ever gonna really like figure out, but I'm just gonna keep thinking about it. It kind of lodged itself in my brain, and I find that really fascinating. I'm like, these are the kinds of movies that really excite me. It's not the movie I thought it was going to be. I really expected, I think deep down I did expect something like Repulsion. Ended up getting something a lot weirder and grosser and very violent. I was surprised how early on she starts screaming. I thought that shit was gonna come way later. Like, I thought we were gonna build into that, but they start fighting like off the bat. That's when I realized, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a long movie. This is gonna be a really interesting watch, isn't it? I think that's what I have to say for now. There are a lot of screaming. I would recommend watching this alone. If you live with people, I would give them a heads up that you're watching this before putting it on in the living room. Or no headphones on the airplane. Why not? Can we talk about Dougal instead of this boring slop? Exactly.